we as Americans think of ourselves as we are a chosen people, we are ordained by God for a specific purpose in the world, when, yes, it was kind of against all odds that we managed to win the revolution. But also when you think about it, how many resources was England actually willing to spend for 13 upstart colonies across the ocean? Like, how much did the crown actually care?
They were limited in what they could afford because they're the global empire.
King George III did actually care. They were the biggest empire in the world.
Mm-hmm.
But they're still going to be limited in the amount of resources. They're not. It's people talk about the American Revolution like as though the British Empire spared absolutely no expense.
They're not true.
And sent literally all of their men to us. And we still whipped them soundly and sent them across the Atlantic with their tails between their legs. That's not what happened. Yeah, we should, by all rights, we maybe should not have won. But the reason that we won was because the majority of our rebels were hunters. Men who were used to shooting from a bush, from behind trees. And the English were not used to that. So when we don't actually, and actually when you look at it, the battles that the United States fought, according to traditional methods, we lost badly early on in the war. When we tried to meet the English on their own terms, we lost badly. Where we completely whipped their butts is when we just started ambushing caravans in the middle of the woods. Think of the Patriot. You know, when Mel Gibson and two 10-year-olds managed to kill 10 redcoats by themselves. That's not just necessarily how good Mel Gibson is in that movie. That's also just how hard it is for the British to fight that way.
Yeah. You gotta train for it.
So, there are practical reasons why we did win. Because the English were not equipped for guerrilla warfare. The English were not equipped for just every average Joe to step out of his farmhouse and point a gun at you and shoot at you. Mm-hmm. They weren't used to that. They're used to everybody folding like a napkin the instant they roll up from the front door. So they're not trained that way. The English come at us with a little bit of arrogance, and they aren't actually able to totally regroup from the initial shock of that by the end of the war. But yet we treat it as though, oh, we only won. We won because God ordained it. There's also God's permissive will and God's active will. And I'm still not sure which one it was that allowed the United States to gain her independence, but we'll get to that another time.
Well, he allows us to have free will, so he allows us to make choices. And there's enough times where he is...
Everything happens in accordance with his will, whether it's permissive or active will.
Yeah.
Everything happens in accordance with his will. So the United States' victory and independence was in accordance with God's will. That is true. But people take that and they just completely run with it and say that we are ordained by God for some high and great purpose. And now we are Zion.
When you ought to be very careful with that language because the logical extent... Well, the flip side of that is that sin is also in that same permissive accordance with God's will.
And when the Pilgrim Fathers first came, they were planning to establish a city on a hill shining for the rest of the world to see. When the Pilgrim Fathers came to establish Massachusetts, they wanted to make a Calvinist utopia.
Wonderful.
Yes, and if that just made shivers run down your spine at the words Calvinist utopia, it should have. Because I cannot imagine anything more boring or dull than a Calvinist utopia. Anyway, the point being that the United States thinks way too highly of itself. We as Americans think far too highly of ourselves, to the point that we even tell ourselves outright lies about our own history. One of the most common ones among conservatives is the United States is the first nation in history to abolish slavery. That is manifestly untrue. Do you know who the first people were to abolish slavery? The first nation, the first government to formally abolish slavery by law? Take a guess.
I'm gonna guess Great Britain.
Yeah. 30 years before we did. Through no small effort of a very good man named William Wilberforce and the preacher that wrote Amazing Grace. Because he had originally been a captain on a slave ship, and then he had I think he had either a mystical experience or he had a conversion of some kind, and then he wound up being a minister. And he was a very good man, too. But that's also a really good movie. The movie Amazing Grace, you should all go and watch it. That's a very, very good movie. It's about the abolition of slavery in the British Empire.
Okay.
But not just them. The Spanish had actually also gotten the ball rolling on the abolition of slavery. Because it happened in stages.
Mm-hmm.
So in the case of the British Empire, a lot of things happened that set the stage for the abolition of slavery to take place. With the Spanish, the abolition of slavery itself had to take place in stages. Limitations on the slave trade being put in, and then how the treatment of slaves, and and then I think the actual final formal abolition of slavery wound up being in like the 1870s for the Spanish Empire, but they at least got the ball rolling in the 1820s. So there's the profound arrogance that the United States has. No wonder Europe doesn't respect us. You know, Americans go overseas and we expect everybody to speak English. Because we are the nation of manifest destiny. We are chosen by God to bring freedom to everybody else in the world. Our vision of freedom. We are going to be your savior. And that basically has been the dictation of United States foreign policy for the last 100 years. We went over and helped in the First World War for like 5 minutes. And then once it's over, we pretend that we won it all by ourselves.
Hey now, Devil Dogs is one of my favorite Sabaton songs.
Devil Dogs is an excellent song. And all respect to the United States Marine Corps. We're recording this on Veterans Day, by the way. So the Marine Corps' found anniversary was just a couple of days ago. All respect to the United States Marines.
Yes.
You're all a great bunch. Semper Fi. Respect to the Army, the Navy, the Air Force. Begrudgingly respect to the Air Force.
We care. But
we care, and we're glad your Wi-Fi's working, but
I think, but I mean, the larger point to draw out of this, right, is put not thy faith in princes, right?
yeah.
You know? And when you
rely on the state to fix all your problems for you. Don't look to the government for salvation.
Yeah. But when you do look to the government for salvation, when you sacralize it, to use that term again, when you sanctify it, when you make it God, when you make it the thing you worship, that you give your life to above everything else, well, it also explains that other behavior you talked about, right? Because, well, I have to, like, the thing that I worship can't be wrong. It has to be omnipotent. It has to be all perfect, right? So I have to whitewash my history. I have to make myself look better than I do.
Right.
You know? Which isn't to say that the U.S. doesn't have virtues. It isn't to say that none of the things we did overseas for other countries was, you know, that it was all bad or something. There was good things we did.
No, there's no such thing as a country that has only ever done good or only ever done wrong.
Yeah.
That's actually not true.
Mm-hmm.
The only argument that could be made for countries that have only ever done wrong is like, or at least governments that have only ever done wrong is like maybe the USSR.
Yeah, it's like I do want us to take care of our own. I do want us to take care of our people, but, you know, I like the Marshall Plan. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, the larger point being, if the government is God, I will seek to make it perfect in my mind.
Yes.
And I imagine that sorry, that I will preach it.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah. It's
You know?
this soft worship of the United States as an entity, to the point that blinders are thrown up to the genuine, actual evils that the United States has done in the world. And yes, you can still be patriotic and acknowledge that, yeah, probably shouldn't have done that. Yeah, probably shouldn't have dropped those bombs.
Not probably.
No, we definitely shouldn't have dropped those bombs.
Yep. Now, we've done all sorts of heinous things.
We probably, well, not probably,
Outside our borders and
definitely-
inside our borders.
we definitely should have given the native tribes a better deal.
And honored said deal.
We should have held up our end of all of our bargains that we made.
Mm-hmm. Because that's what an honorable and good man does.
Is the only reason that they broke their end of the bargain is that we didn't hold up our end. So yeah, we definitely should have given them a fairer shake. And there's an argument to be made, we probably should have just left them alone to begin with. Did we need to expand? Did we need more than 13 colonies? Did we need to buy territory from Napoleon? Now, maybe he needed us to do it because he needed the money. Because he was trying to fight a war with everybody at the time.
Yeah. Well, what right did he
But-
have to the land anyway? So, and no, this is not a, land reclamation must happen.
No.
Bullshit. So,
Actually, the French took their land in a lot better way than the United States did.